webinar. And if you look in the, if you look over in the participant screen, you can see the attendees starting to come in and keep track of who's here.
Okay. Melanie, this is Nancy. Could I just say this real quick? We're not live, right?
We are live.
Can others hear us?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to check in. Thank you.
Should I begin, Mel?
Let's give it
Oh, there,
1 minute.
people are checking in.
Yeah, it looks like we've got, yeah, I think you can start.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dan Fitz, and I'm the Executive Director of the Adirondack Research Consortium. I'm pleased to welcome you to our 2021 Awards Webinar Program, which normally would be held during the annual conference on the Adirondacks, but this year, obviously, we can't be doing that. I will moderate this evening's program. I want to thank our webinar sponsors, Paul Smith College and International Paper. I also want to recognize the ARC President and Paul Smith College Professor, Dr. Melanie Johnson, who is making this webinar possible through her technical wizardry. Thank you, Mel. We invite you to use the chat function to submit questions or comments as the program goes on. One piece of business, since we cannot hold our annual membership meeting this year, the ARC Board of Directors has reaffirmed Board of Director positions for 3-year terms and board officers, which can be found listed on our webpage, adkresearch.org. Should anyone have questions concerning these appointments, please contact us. Moving along to the program. The Elizabeth Thorndike Adirondack Achievement Award is given annually to an individual who has demonstrated significant contributions to the long-term sustainability of the Adirondack Park through scholarship, research, and policy initiatives. Past awardees include Bill Porter, Nina Schock, Ray Curran, Eileen Allen, Barbara Bedford, Joe Martens, Myron Mitchell, Jerry Jenkins, Dudley Rennell, and Barbara McMartin. Certainly a distinguished list of individuals, and this year's awardee is no different. After a teaching career, Diane Fish in 2001 started as a development associate at the Adirondack Council, a not-for-profit founded in 1975 to defend the wild character and ecological integrity of the Adirondacks. After 20 years of working on behalf of the park in several roles for the council, including deputy director and senior advisor, Diane retired last February. During her tenure, the council experienced significant organizational growth and success. But more than the success, Diane dedicated her career to protecting the ecological and community character of the Adirondacks. She approached her work by making complex environmental policies and issues understandable, and encouraged as many people as possible to participate in the process. It was her behind-the-scenes work, along with that of her colleagues, that made many of the council's accomplishments possible. To say a few words about Diane, we've invited 2 of her colleagues and friends. First up is Liz Thorndike, quite a leader in her own right. Because of a long scheduled appointment in Rochester, Liz cannot be with us live this evening, but she has recorded a message about women in conservation, which we'll share with you now.
I'm sorry. Give me 1 moment, please. Snafu first.
These webinars, these things happen, and we deal with them on the fly.
Dan, it's great to see you and so many other folks here for this.
Who worked so closely with Diane at the Adirondack Council, will give you more details about her accomplishments with this organization that has always valued the importance of research, better information for better decisions, which is the Adirondack Research Consortium's reason for being. Two occurrences these past couple of weeks have raised the value of what Diane has meant to the Adirondack community as a leader and as a woman. Days ago, we could watch the President of the United States speaking to the Congress, flanked by not one, but two women, the Speaker of the House and the Vice President of the United States. In sharp contrast, the other occurrence was my reading A Wild Idea, Brad Edmondson's hot off the press account of the circumstances in the 1960s and 70s, which led to the creation of the Temporary Study Commission and the milestone creation of the Adirondack Park Agency, whose 50th anniversary we're about to commemorate. What amazed me about the magnificent narrative of this pivotal chapter in American environmental history about the very organization and its impacts that the Adirondack Council was created to monitor was not what any of the complimentary reviews noted. It was realizing the glaring fact that not a single woman was involved in a leadership role in that process. The study commission members, the legislators, the various government agency staff were all male. Of the initial APA commissioners, except for the indomitable Mary Prime, all were men. So Diane, I am happy to honor you for your many years of leadership with the Adirondack Council in the 21st century. Finally, we have had the women whom you so effectively represent assume leadership roles, including with the Adirondack Park Agency, in guiding the many actions that affect the Adirondack community. Even though women still remain a distinct minority, I repeat, a distinct minority, they now lead many organizations, supervise numerous towns and villages, and serve in key agency government roles. Diane, I am proud to be part of honoring your leadership over the past 20 years that has paved the way for so many women in the future. Know that you stand as a beacon and a symbol of the many capable women who add immeasurably to the well-being of the Adirondack community. Congratulations.
Is Willie back? Thank you for doing that for us, Liz. Next up is the Executive Director of the Adirondack Council, Willie Janeway, who also simultaneously has his own board meeting going on. So we're grateful you can take a few minutes to be with us, Willie. Willie?
Thank you, Dan. And it's a real pleasure to join you here, the Adirondack Research Consortium, great and important organization in the Adirondacks, and to join you in honoring and celebrating the leader, Diane Fish. For almost a quarter century, Diane White Fish has dedicated herself to preserving, wherever possible, enhancing the great wilderness legacy of this Adirondack Park. For even longer, Diane has given the gift of extraordinary flute music and herself to many others. Her extraordinary music, like extraordinary wilderness, like Diane, is priceless. Diane has been an amazing mentor to many and an incredible parent to her two children. They tell me this. Because of Diane, the Adirondacks, and all of us who make this park our home, all of us who consider the park to be our spiritual home, we are all better off and appreciative. Congratulations to the Adirondack Research Consortium for its wisdom and generosity in awarding this special and highly coveted Dr. Elizabeth Thorndike Adirondack Achievement Award to Diane. We know of Liz's incredible legacy. It's very appropriate to put Diane up there with Liz on that same pedestal. Applause to the ARC for that decision, and applaud to you, the ARC, for your mission, your work, encouraging, facilitating, making available research-based knowledge and scholarship that advances the quality and vitality of this incredible Adirondack Park. All of us who know Diane know she's an enthusiastic, generous, principled, intelligent leader, Adirondack advocate. But if you look in the council files and you try and find a resume, you might be very disappointed, because all you find is all this reference to all the other people and all that they do. She's always pointing her fingers at others. Humility is one of Diane's many strengths, which makes it even more appropriate and even greater that we take this moment tonight to honor and recognize her in multiple positions with the Adirondack Council, Director of Fund Development, Deputy Director, Senior Advisor, but also in work with other organizations, the Adirondack Nonprofit Network, Lake Placid Center for the Arts, Lake Placid Land Trust. I could go on, but I'm on a tight leash here and not going on for too long. Anyone who's worked with her, participated, engaged with her in any of those knows she is a true team player, a real leader. Diane always understood that the Adirondacks, and she still understands, the Adirondacks are a unique national treasure, and that we collectively are guardians of this legacy. It's clean water, it's clean air, it's wilderness, and it's communities. And she understands, as you do, how important science and investing in science is that. The Adirondack Council and I, as a small token of our appreciation and to complement this great award from the ARC, are pleased to announce that in addition to making a grant to ARC in Diane's name from the Adirondack Council, with help from her husband, Peter, there is a custom soulless bicycle being built just for her to help her retire and enjoy the fruits of her decades of dedication to the Adirondack Park. So we hope she can have many more decades of enjoying what she's done so much to help us all protect. Diane, thank you, and congratulations on this well-deserved recognition.
Thank you so much, Willie. And what a tribute to make a donation in Diane's honor. Thank you so much for that. Both to Liz and Willie, thank you, and congratulations, Diane. And I'd like to give you a chance to say a few words if you'd like.
You're muted, Diane.
Someone unmuted me.
You're good.
There we go. Thank you. I'm incredibly honored, and to be honored in honor of Liz Thorndike is especially meaningful. And thank you, Liz, for just talking about the women in conservation that are so important. It has been a privilege and an honor to work with the Adirondack Council's incredible board and staff and all the colleagues and partners and citizen advocates on behalf of the Adirondacks. And I look forward to being a great conservation volunteer and exploring by bicycle, foot, and all the places I was telling Neil earlier, and reading all the books about the Adirondacks that I never had time to read during daylight hours before. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and I'm honored.
Thank you, Diane. Well deserved. We're going to shift gears and talk about one of our colleagues and friends. And we lost our colleague and friend, Bill Porter, much too soon. Along with Eileen Allen and Liz Thorndike, Bill was a driving force in establishing the Adirondack Research Consortium as a bona fide 501c3 not-for-profit. He led our organization as president and in many initiatives that have made us the organization we are today. Bill has deep roots in the Adirondacks, serving for many years as the director of the Adirondack Ecological Center, SUNY ESF Satellite Campus in Newcomb, as well as teaching on the main campus in Syracuse. I remember many conversations with Bill about the recovery of the wild turkey population in the Adirondacks, something that very much pleased him. To honor his memory, we are announcing today the Bill Porter Wildlife Forum, which will be a panel discussion on wildlife-related issues held each year at the annual conference on the Adirondacks. To further honor the legacy of Bill, we have invited two of his colleagues and friends. The first is his former student, the Dean of the Rubenstein School at the University of Vermont, Dr. Nancy Matthews. Ironically, Nancy accepted the Adirondack Achievement Award on Bill's behalf in 2019 and was able to present it to him personally at his home in Michigan. And we're very grateful to you for that, Nancy, and we're pleased that you can join us tonight. Nancy?
Great. Thank you so much, Dan. And I am so incredibly honored to have been asked to speak on behalf of myself and Bill's 70 plus graduate students from both ESF and MSU. And I hope that my remarks can capture and express the gratitude that I have for the impact that Bill has had on each of our lives. I'm honored to also welcome here in the audience today, Bill's wife, Deanne, and his two sons, Brad and Ben, and I will assume their wives, Leah and Christine, and their children. So I'm so glad they could join us today. I'm going to share just a few memories that will highlight what we love most about Bill, and hopefully they will resonate with you as I bring some of these to life, and hopefully it'll bring a smile to your face. There's no question Bill laid the foundation for nearly everything I have accomplished in my career. And he would not want to agree to that, but I want to assure you that is absolutely true. Mentoring graduate students is much more than technical coaching and guiding, and he did that very well. But what he did was he helped develop life skills that shaped my own values. And I think maybe even a better way of saying that is he helped me develop values that shape my life skills. He was a master at helping students build self-confidence, a message I've heard from all of his students, particularly when I visited students at Michigan State. His positivity, his optimism pervaded his work and how he interacted with his students. And it really set the tone for all of us. There is just nothing like it to have seen how he approached his work, his life, and his students. He had a generosity of spirit, a keen intellect, a warm heart, and a sense of joint adventure. And I can only imagine how fun it was for all the new students to see Bill get fired up over a new research project. In November last year, just after Bill passed, I had a conference call with Brian Underwood, Stacy McNulty, and Amy Deckett. And I know Stacy is here today. And we each reflected on our own memories, and without exception, the qualities that I named above were each ones that we treasured and remembered as well. And it was quite an emotional call that actually lifted all of us because we could share our common feelings. But a couple other memories that I wanted to share is that I recall my interview for graduate school with Bill in 1980, spring of 1980. This is how far back we go. And if you remember this is the time of John Malloy and Dress for Success. And my grades weren't all that great at Penn State. And later I asked Bill why he accepted me in graduate school. He said, Nancy, anybody who can wear a blue suit to an interview at a forestry college gets my vote. So that always stuck with me. And I know, Neil, you're laughing because you know exactly that's what Bill would have said. I remember when he called me when I was working in Bakersfield, California on endangered species in 1985 to recruit me back to ESF to take a PhD position on a deer project. And I distinctly recall Bill saying, I love the idea of you coming back to work. And I said, I loved it too, but Bill, don't we know everything about white-tailed deer? Bill just laughed. You can see that. His confidence in my ability to tackle a project such as tackling deer as a woman, speaking of women in wildlife, was immeasurable. And every one of his women students with whom I've spoken echoes his confidence, gave all of us confidence to succeed. I recall his visits to the field at Huntington Wildlife Forest to trap deer. Now, Bill always wanted to participate, and he wasn't exactly spot on as a data recorder. I remember seeing a few data sheets that raised some questions about what field did you put that in, Bill? But he was always a great photographer, and he documented our lives as graduate students, and in so doing, documented his own life with the lives of his graduate students. He left an example in the wildlife park, through the Adirondack Wildlife Program. It was a legacy. It was a thriving partnership with the state, and so much fun to have had so much action up in the Adirondacks through that program. His advances in understanding deer behavior And he was one of the few, I have to say, in terms of building confidence, who believed in this crazy theory that has now sort of been embraced by dear biologists called the rose petal theory back in the 1980s. And most people would say it's just too flowery and too feminine. And Bill was a big proponent of it. And I was so grateful to him. His mentorship, and I'll be wrapping up in just a second. I couldn't let this moment pass and not reminding everybody about Bill's love of Stephen Covey and the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He had all of his graduate students reading it, and it drove us all insane, but we all benefited from it. We loved it. And his support for our leadership development was just immeasurable. He's been a great mentor post-graduation throughout my career. I've called on him for lots of advice through all of the career moves that I have had since then. And I'll wrap it up by saying that Bill loved and appreciated just his family, Deanne, Bill, Ben, and Brad. I've loved seeing them grow, and his family was very much a part of his life at ESF up at Huntington. And Deanne was the gracious hostess of so many events at their home in Borodino. And Deanne, I hope this is going to bring a groan and a smile, but one event was to come have everybody celebrate the brand new carpeting that they had in their home. And I was walking in with the Ringlers and a couple other people, and my potluck dish that I was bringing was a crock pot full of pea soup. And no sooner had I walked in the front door than I dropped the crock pot on the floor on the brand new carpeting. And Deanne and Bill, of course, were stunned, but were so gracious in helping us clean up the crock pot. So to bring it to a close, I would say that these reflections are some of my own that I hope bring smiles and joy and help all of you remember the joy that Bill brought to you as well. It should generate warm feelings. He was generous. He touched the lives, all of our lives in so many ways, and will forever be remembered as a leader, a mentor, and a friend. I have enormous appreciation for the privilege of having Bill in my life in the past, and I know he will always be with me in spirit in the future. In the future, I think of him every day. Thank you.
Nancy, it's very touching. Thank you also for sharing the pea soup story. It really helps deal with the situation. Thank you, Nancy. That was lovely. Next up is Dr. Cornelius B. Murphy Jr., who worked with Bill during his tenure as president of SUNY ESF. Neil graciously agreed to share some thoughts about Bill with us tonight, and we'll call on you now, Neil.
Well, thank you all very much. Bill Porter had an incredible career, in the whole area of wildlife conservation. He served 30 years as a professor here at ESF, did some incredible research that spanned from songbirds to moose, and was pivotal in restoring, as Nancy said, the turkeys basically in many locations, including the upper Midwest. Bill loved his role, as Nancy said, loved his role in mentoring graduate students, and mentored over 70 graduate students. He went above and beyond for his students and never forgot a special occasion that was important to one of his students, and he would help them celebrate that. Outside his family, nothing made Bill more proud than the impact of his students and what they were doing in the area of wildlife management and conservation. It was what professionally fed him and made him the person that he was. It was a stimulus that definitely drove his academic career. While a professor at ESF, as Nancy said, he served as director of the Adirondack Ecological Center located in Huntington Wildlife Refuge. He raised funds for new buildings. He restored Huntington Lodge, certainly one of the great Adirondack camps. He helped persuade the state of New York to invest multi-million dollars in an interpretive center in Newcomb, which even today draws thousands of people. And I have to tell you, I really think that the director's residence at Newcomb was his second home. As a new president of ESF, he taught me about the Adirondacks. I remember vividly, he took me under his wing. And every summer I would head out with Bill and to see his latest project and to meet his research team. His pride in what his students were doing was all over him. We unfortunately lost Bill to Michigan State University in 2010, where he became the first Boone and Crockett professor for wildlife conservation. An extraordinary accomplishment and something I know that Bill was very, very proud of. He built a strong graduate program in the Department of Fisheries and Wildlife and served as the director of the Quantitative Wildlife Center. Again, taking his passion to another institution, planting that passion and seeing it grow. Dr. Porter's research explored population dynamics, behavioral ecology. He did everything. It was interesting that Nancy talked about growing his graduate students, not just technically, but in other areas to really complement their and give them the life skills going forward. I remember vividly that he taught courses in leadership and wildlife policy, something our students desperately needed and something that I know has served them very, very well. And that was at both the undergraduate and graduate level. His dedication to the conservation of wildlife and the habitat continues to be missed. Bill was very lucky to have a soulmate. And that soulmate was in the person of his wife, Deanne. And he was very proud of his sons, Brad and Ben, and his 4 wonderful grandchildren. Bill also put his heart and soul, as much as he put in his family, he tried to put as much into his students. We miss Bill every day. He took an administrator, that's me, and trained me, I being trained in physical and organic chemistry and in engineering. And he opened my heart and soul to wildlife biology and the Adirondack Park. Think how he changed, taught, and developed his students. Bill was a friend. He was my teacher. He was a strong leader of the college's presence and positive impact on this extraordinary ecosystem that we call the Adirondack Park. And Deanne, this is for both you and for Bill. Thank you, Bill, for all you have done. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Neil. That was beautiful. And thanks to both you and Nancy for such a fitting tribute. And Deanne and family, please know the Adirondacks is a place that Bill will not be forgotten. Shifting gears again, in partnership with Ecology and Environment, the Adirondack Research Consortium established a $10,000 award fund in honor of Rick Morse. Dan Castle, a former vice president for Ecology and Environment, was instrumental in setting up that fund, and Dan is on this call. Rick was a colleague and friend with deep experience in environmental policy and a special place in his heart for the Adirondacks. After spending 32 years at the New York State Assembly, where he was one of the original authors of Superfund legislation, Rick worked as a senior policy advisor at Ecology and Environment, Inc., a worldwide environmental consulting firm with its headquarters near Buffalo. Rick was an avid backcountry and alpine skier, sailor, runner, and Ironman triathlete, passions he continued to enjoy even after being diagnosed with cancer. Music was a central part of Rick's life from an early age and an enduring source of joy that he shared with friends, loved ones, and strangers alike. Through the Rick Morse Award, a $500 award is given annually to a student who is studying at one of the colleges with connection to the Adirondack region and shares the passion Rick had for environmental policy, music, and outdoor activities in the Adirondacks. We are thrilled to present the 2021 Morse Award along with $500 to Paul Smith College graduate student Jesse Rock. To say a little something about Jesse, I'm going to call on Professor Mel Johnson.
Hey, everyone. Thanks, Dan. Jesse Rock is an individual who is grounded in the natural world, committed to the protection and restoration of our ecosystems, and exemplifies Paul Smith students who value the direct experience in the field and with faculty members. Jesse values observation skills and the ability to see how the intersection of natural history and human history and our legacy leave their signature on the land. In this way, he will bring a richness to his work and to his interactions with people. Jesse is here with us today. And Jesse is going to be sharing a song with us in memory of Rick. So thank you, Jesse.
Thank you very much, Mel. I hope everyone can hear me okay. I want to thank everyone here today for this award. It means a lot, honestly. It's kind of a surprise a little bit that Mel nominated me and told me. And after reading into the award, I felt very humbled and honored. As Rick was a very large fan of music, I'm going to just play a small piece, very short, that I kind of was asked to play this morning, and I was thinking about what I should play, and this song came in head. It's been a little dreary and rainy out here in the Adirondacks, and this song just fit very well. So, in memory of Rick, and I hope this comes through okay audio-wise. I know my green screen's freaking out.
Well, thank you, Jesse. That was beautiful, and what a nice tribute to Rick. And thank you for doing that in his honor. And congratulations. And we will find you and present you with a $500 check. And congratulations on receiving the 2021 Rick Morris Award.
Thank you very much. Again, I greatly honored and appreciate it.
Finally, in keeping with our awards program tradition, we ask an individual guest to share with us their latest research. This year, the board nominated Dr. Bill Vitek, and we are honored he agreed to join us. And that nomination came very strongly from Clarkson University, I might mention. Bill is director of the New Perennials Project, editor of New Perennials Publishing, and a scholar in residence at Middlebury College. He taught philosophy for 32 years at Clarkson University, always with the objective of helping students nurture their philosophical imaginations in pursuit of doing useful work in the world. Much of his writing has engaged ecological issues, including collaborations with Wes Jackson and the Land Institute for over 3 decades. Bill is also a semi-professional jazz pianist. That means he plays a lot and gets paid sometimes. It is my pleasure to welcome Bill Vitek.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much, Dan, for that introduction. Congratulations to all the award winners. And I'm just so moved to hear about Bill Porter's influence on all of you. And it then seems odd that someone who's never lived in the Adirondacks and has not been really part of that work for a long time, it would be giving a presentation. But I can say that I spent my whole life growing up around and just outside of the Adirondack Park in Schenectady as a young person, and for 32 years at Clarkson University, and now across the pond, if you will, over in Vermont. And so I'll talk a little bit about this work, and I think I'll share my screen now. Let's see if I can do that. I want to get rid of the video panel. That didn't go. Let's see. 1 second. No, let's just, I thought I wanted to, I want to hide it. I don't want to hide, that's okay. Okay, let's, I assume folks can see that. So, why won't it let me? Oh, that's right. Okay. So I run this project called the New Perennials Project in Vermont right now. And when Dan asked me to talk about my research, I had to think a little bit about it because although I'm trained as a philosopher, my work has always been in the sort of practical side of things. And I get a lot of laughs, I suppose, and chuckles when I talk about my work as an applied philosopher. But that's what I am. And now I'm having trouble getting this to move. Let's see, why isn't that working? And so I'll just say a little bit about what it means to be an applied philosopher. I grew up in a very practical family. That's me and my brother and father standing in front of the family cement mixer. My dad was an engineer, my brother a mechanic, my mother a homemaker, and my other brother a mortician. And I loved reading about philosophy. But I was the youngest and I got to help and turned out to be a good helper, although I wasn't very talented in using my hands for practical work. But I stayed with philosophy and I ended up with the perfect job at Clarkson University teaching philosophy to practical people, and where the motto is, a workman needeth not be ashamed. And it was while I was working and teaching at Clarkson that I got involved with the agricultural community in the St. Lawrence Valley, which led me to meeting Wes Jackson, who I invited to my campus. I met Wes Jackson in 1991. This is a picture in 2005 on a never plowed Kansas prairie with a herd of buffalo there while we talked about, I think, ideas. But my work has always been collaborative. The books that I've edited with Wes have always brought the work of other people to a larger audience. And I've always tried to write for a general audience. And I'm continue to do that now. So in some ways, that's my research. The New Perennials Project started officially in 2018, but it goes back to the work of the Land Institute that Wes and his first wife, Dana Jackson, founded in 1976 as an alternative school where students would come and read the great works of literature and philosophy, but also learn how to build solar collectors and build a good fence and their own living quarters. But that Land Institute slowly morphed into a research center to develop and explore the use of perennial crop varieties in agriculture. And that is what the Land Institute now is best known for. But in 2015, the Land Institute brought in a number of grants that allowed Wes Jackson to say, okay, let's see if we can bring the school back too. And in 2015, I helped him and others have a program called Ecosphere Studies conference out at the Land Institute. And we did that for a few years. And in 2018, with the help of the Rockefeller Family Fund, we put together a grant to continue this work and to explore it in other parts of the country. And that grant was awarded in 2018. And so it's a project that's a 5-year project. We're going into our 4th year now. It has 2 hubs, one in Kansas and now one in Middlebury, Vermont, and the Champlain Valley on this side of the lake. It has two foundations supporting it financially, and it has lots of different projects going on. Apologies for all of these arrows. I'll try to make sense of them in a second. But if we narrow down what we're doing to one sentence, it is that we're exploring how farming and thinking are connected, and the ways in which the way we see the land and treat plants and animals on the land, and the people who farm the land, how we think of them is a part of agriculture and a part of our deep heritage of thinking and education. So on the left side, you'll see pictures of industrial agriculture, monocultures, confinement, high use of energy, chemicals for pesticides and herbicides, producing huge amounts of surplus, but also making the lives of many, many people terrible and hard, with migrant workers and farmers across the world working long hours without significant pay. The slide on the right's a little bit lighthearted, but it's the idea that we have turned our educational systems into a kind of monoculture agricultural system as well. We put our students in rows. We develop their ways of thinking and being through grading, which is our form of weeding, if you will. And we produce graduates, and those graduates then get harvested and go out into the world and make their living. We call our disciplinary areas silos, and our places of storage of information server farms. And so this idea that agriculture and education are linked in many ways, and linked in ways that are not always beneficial to the earth or to its people. Wes Jackson's work has always been about developing perennial alternatives to annual agriculture. And we're starting to see these perennial varieties on the landscape around the world, not just in Kansas, but in China, in Europe, South America. About 60 research organizations are now in the development of perennial agriculture. And so as we hope that this agricultural revolution starts to influence industrial agriculture, our question is how might it affect education, and how might it affect learning, and how might it affect the way we think about ourselves in the world? In short, what does perennial education look like? So we have some operating assumptions, and these have been really shaped by the last year. And so I called them pandemic-informed operating assumptions. The project had a number of goals that we started in 18 and 19. The pandemic has forced us to rethink some of those. And I think we're all doing that in our own work. So the first is, we'll never be ready for these changes. We weren't ready when the pandemic came. These kinds of changes are dramatic, and we're expecting more of them with the climate emergencies that are now facing us globally. So we'll sort of never be ready, but we'll have to do the best we can when they arrive. We're seeing social systems and institutions becoming more unstable, and we expect that to happen in the coming decades. But these systems also provide us some stability and slack for developing these transitions that we're all working on in ecological work, social justice work, agriculture, conservation, all of the work that all of you are doing as well. And even as we do research, even as we develop work that still needs to be tested, it seems to me that we have to be ready or not with rapid response opportunities and skills, and that those will become increasingly valued and sought after going forward. And the work that we're doing in this project is primarily in regions, and it's looking to people who are generalists by nature, not specialists, people who can do many things and who live in those regions and can respond in those regions to these changes. And so what this project is doing is looking at what we're calling perenniality in our communities, in the way we teach and learn, and in how we share these ideas with the various forms of media. We're now focused primarily on basic and immediate needs in regions, and that of course includes education, but also feeding people when the time comes. We continue to develop ideas, and you'll see those in a minute, but we're also willing to get involved with what we call rapid response measures when the times call for them. And we're always looking for partners who are engaged in multiple aspects of this work, and I'll share that in a second. The question about perenniality is sort of what is it? And here we take our lessons from perennial plants, first and foremost. They grow for more than one season. They prioritize deep root systems. And because they're perennial, they have to learn to get along in ecosystems. And their focus is on longevity, not necessarily productivity. And in the middle, you see a poster, real photographs of annual wheat on your left, which is an annual and perennial wheatgrass that the Land Institute has been developing. They call it Kernza. And you can learn more about that at kernza.org. But that plant there is 14 months old on the right. The roots go down about 3.5 centimeters. Those roots store carbon. Those roots overwinter, and those plants come up every year, not forever, but for many years. And it changes the way we think about food in agriculture and productivity. We're also looking at perenniality, though, in the liberal arts, in philosophy, religion, environmental studies, the humanities in general. So this work is really pretty strongly focused in the liberal arts and the humanities. So we'll look at the community partners that our project is engaging. And this is a key part of our new perennials project. We identified 5 community groups or community spheres. They are ag and food as 1, education 2, the creative arts 3, the healing arts 4, and faith and sacred practice traditions 5. And so we're not looking at economic analysis. We're not looking at policy or politics. We're not trying to change laws. We're looking at community resilience in these 5 communities to learn from them about how they think about perenniality in their work, and how we can learn from them and they can, we hope, learn from us. And so here's a list of some of the partners we've been working with, both at the college, but also community partners around the region. And when the pandemic hit, we suddenly were not able to do the projects we had said we would engage in. And instead, we created a rapid response fund, and we distributed about $45,000 to various community groups to help them do what they were already doing. So we helped farmers buy refrigeration and other materials so they could store food and be able to feed more people. We took an arts group called Courageous Stage, and we supported them creating a portable medicine show that they took around to neighborhoods and provided entertainment. We helped a parent-child center provide art supplies to children and parents who now were stuck at home. And we did a number of these activities, and it made sense for us to do this work. And we continue to engage these community partners in the work ahead. We tie these community partners to the classroom. And so the second piece of the New Perennials project is learning. And because we're at Middlebury College, we have developed a course that we call the Perennial Turn in Ag and Culture. We started it in the fall of 2018, and we've now taught it 3 times. It's a standard class. We bring in undergraduates. We have them read across the liberal arts canon in philosophy, cosmology, environmental science and studies, religion, literature, agricultural history. We bring in our community partners. We connect our students to community partners. We take them on field trips. So here you can see the students are looking at Kernza, which we have planted out at the Knoll, at the college, regular classrooms. They're here with an artist, Karen McCoy from Kansas, doing some interactive work. And we also involve them we keep them on as interns and help us develop learning materials. And up here you see a card. In the first 2 years that we taught the course, we had students develop a perennial glossary of key terms from our readings and from our course. Terms that often they made up on their own, and others they took from the course. And last summer we had students develop these glossary cards. We have 53 of them, and we're now going to be sharing them with educators for ways to explore these ideas. We also have interns working on developing workshops for K-12 students focused on roots that not only teach students about plant roots, but also the notion of being rooted and uprooted and addressing social justice issues here in Vermont. Last year, we asked our students to imagine a perennial learning center concept and imagining what a curriculum might look like that would show up in community centers around Vermont or maybe around the country, that would utilize existing community centers that might take advantage of empty buildings. In this case, up here on the right, an elementary school of a Catholic school that's no longer being used, or other places where we might develop centers that help people deal with the shocks of pandemics and other instabilities, giving them skills, having them taught by volunteers in the community, and creating not just a classroom, but a library, a performance space, kitchen, a sanctuary, a place where we can learn together. And our plans going forward are to develop a couple examples of these. We're working with an architect at Yale right now who's working on agricultural design systems. And in the left here, you see a group of young people walking, believe it or not, out to their school, a classroom in the woods, which consists of a yurt and a big fire circle. And these young people spend most of their time outside 12 months of the year learning and connecting. And so we want to continue that work as well. We also want to develop, finally, a way of sharing this work. And so as part of our work, we've developed a publishing platform to share this work. And the idea is that all of this work will be available free with downloadable PDFs. We have one book, an anthology that's out and available and downloadable. We hope to have a few more on that website very soon. We're also supporting a podcast series with Wes Jackson, and we have our first season done this past year. And we're working with a film production crew in California who are working on a feature film of Wes Jackson called Prairie Prophecy. Questions of social justice are on our minds, of course, as they should be. And this work is taking us into a couple of areas in Vermont in helping us work with various community groups and issues in Vermont. One having to do with the Abenaki Nation, spread out all around New England, but their land rights and access issues. We're working with Judy Dow and with Gadakana, Abenaki cultural organization. We're working with a student group, Rooted Organizing Community, an organization started by high school students 5 years ago. 2 of those students are now at Middlebury College, and they work with resettled communities in Vermont and working with high school students to help them learn about resettled communities in Vermont and how to bring social justice to Vermont and to these communities. And a third one that might seem a little surprising, but I think when we think about what our veterans have gone through in the last 10 years of a kind of nonstop nation at war, veterans in agriculture, a number of organizations, a number of veterans now starting their farms, using farm work to help both heal soil and land and also as a way to heal themselves. And so we're working with a couple of veterans who are now developing farms in the region. And so this work is wonderfully challenging. I do something different every day, and many days I have no idea really what I'm doing because I wasn't trained to do this. And it requires me to trust others and to learn from others, which is kind of what I did growing up around all those practical people. So it's been a wonderful opportunity to do this work. We're only about 3 years into it. I would say that the great freedom of this project is that in some ways we're unencumbered by the traditional structures. So I have no intention of starting a New Perennials nonprofit. We have so many wonderful nonprofits around Vermont and in the Adirondacks, of course, as you know. So we don't need another one, but how can we learn from them and work and support what they're already doing? We don't produce a lot of peer-reviewed articles and detailed reports for our funders, but we learn from the multiple traditions of scholarship and wisdom that are out there in the world with the hope of generating a place for people to go to and get those materials without cost and to use them. And although I am at Middlebury College, the project is hosted here, we're not really developing or working to develop a new curriculum or to somehow create a department, but we get to work with such wonderful Middlebury students and faculty and staff, and my colleagues here have been most wonderful. And so the work will continue going forward. Just a reminder that in October, we hope to have a series of events throughout the month of October. We're calling Harvest Days. They're going to be up in 2 locations here at the college and also up at All Souls Interfaith Gathering up in Shelburne, Vermont. Workshops, a gallery of art, a creative arts conference, farm and field days, and roundtables with thought leaders from around the country. So we hope you stay connected and come visit and talk to me, and we can share ideas. So I just want to say thank you. I think I'm under 20 minutes here. I hope I am. Lots of places you can look. Please feel free to contact me. And I'll just want to close by saying that, again, this work I could not be doing this work if it wasn't for all the mentoring I've gotten over the years from my friends and colleagues in the park, in upstate New York, teachers, professors, students. And this work is just happening across the lake, but we do imagine it growing and moving into other regions as well. So I hope we have a chance to do that with our friends and colleagues in the Adirondacks. So I'll stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Excellent presentation. It's very nice to meet you virtually. And I look forward to having you at one of our events over here in the Adirondacks and meeting personally and introducing you to all of our Adirondack friends and hearing more about your work.
Thank you.
Alas, our award webinar comes to an end. And I want to congratulate again Diane Fish and Jesse on their awards. I want to thank all our presenters for such caring and loving presentations. Is what makes the Adirondacks a special place that it is. I want to thank you all for joining us here this evening. Again, we thank our sponsors, Paul Smith College and International Paper. We also thank Mel Johnson for making this webinar happen. The Adirondack Research Consortium will continue our webinar series in the fall, along with our Forestry Roundtable. Also coming soon is the next volume of the Adirondack Journal of Environmental Studies. It'll be published in 2 editions and online in partnership with Union College. Thank you all for joining us. I wish you peace and good health, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. Good night.